Yogis, welcome back to another episode of RunYogi Diaries. This is your host, Santosh Shiva. I hope you had a wonderful week and you also got some time to play, swim, bike, run, whatever is your thing. Every week, I bring you conversations with people who are on a journey of well being and endurance. I hope they spark some possibility in you, leave you with some tips, and perhaps some inspiration to perspire. If you like this channel, consider subscribing to it. Hit like if you like this video, and leave your comments below and let us know what you think. This episode is also available on all major podcast platforms if audio is your thing. In today's episode, I have somebody very fascinating, a person who lives in the intersection of passion and mission. He is Vijay Venugopal, a recreational athlete, someone who's done marathons under 3 hours, and also is a CEO of a leading supplement brand in India, Fast Enough. We get behind the scenes of his personal journey, key lessons, what keeps him going and motivated, and also what's behind his company and what it stands for. So hopefully you take away some learnings, some key messages, and some inspiration. Let's dig in. Hey Vijay, welcome to RunYogi Diaries.
Thanks, Santosh. Pleasure to be here.
Terrific. Yeah, it's a pleasure, to talk to someone who's an accomplished recreational, runner, and also who's taken that passion into profession. You're also an entrepreneur who's running a thriving supplements business in India, which is growing industry. So we have a lot to talk and learn about. But before that, let me request you to do a quick personal introduction, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. Pleasure to be here, Santosh. Like I said, I currently live in Bangalore, but I've been moving around quite a bit. So in India, I've lived in multiple places like Trivandrum, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad. So multiple places apart from Shanghai, which is in China. But my own running journey in terms of road races started in 2012. And over a period of time, yeah, I have found it enjoyable, I'm sure, which we will talk about. Uh, and I also, like you rightly said, have been part of a fascinating journey of building a nutrition brand called Fast and Up, which is today one of the biggest brands in India. So that has been satisfying. But otherwise, a 47-year-old runner, a normal family guy, willing to improve.
Nice, very nice. So yeah, that's awesome. So you lived across the country, which makes you a true qualifies you to be a true Indian. No, I'm just kidding.
One of the benefits is that you get connected to running groups across the country.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
has been an interesting part.
That is true. That is true. All right. So, we're here to talk about your personal journey and your the lessons that you've learned. So we can share that with the audience that is listening to this. So maybe we should do a bit of a flashback and go back in time and see what got you started and how it got started, the whole running journey.
So, interesting question. I was trying to recollect a little bit, and I would probably divide my uh, running journey, in fact, into five parts. So, the part till I was around 22, 23, I was possibly inclined to sports. I have done a little bit of track and field in school and college, but nothing of note. But I used to love distances around 800, 1500, cross country, those kind of distances. Uh, Coming from a vegetarian, typical Tambram, you don't have strength, so you have to make it up with typically those endurance skills and those kind of activities. Even in cricket, for example, I couldn't hit a straight six, so I always used to take my singles and twos. But uh, thereafter, you get into corporate life, and there was a period of around close to 10 years where I did play a little bit of cricket for my organization in Mumbai. but typically without any activity. You would go for a Sunday match, Saturday match, and play, and then come back and enjoy. Right? I mean, with hardly any practice or fitness. So it was in 2012 that my running journey, the road racing side started. So that itself is divided into three parts. So the first two parts was till 22, 23, and then the 10 years. Uh, so initially, you wanted to do something different, monotonous corporate life, and you look around. And I was not the kind of guy who would possibly hit a gym because I was never inclined to do that because I felt it was very subjective in terms of output. uh, I thought running was very specific, that you can measure your output in terms of whether you run a 5K, whether you run a 10K, and it was relatable to times that you do and the improvements that you can make, right? So I thought it was much more interesting for me. So I started the first phase of my running journey where I enjoyed the process.
Hmm.
A few years into that, the second part of the running journey started, where I started getting more competitive, trying
Mhm.
to improve my times. Going around and seeing if I can benchmark myself against what's happening in the running circuit, in the amateur running circuit. Uh, and the last phase, which I'm currently leading in terms of the running journey itself, probably started 2 and a half years back, when I possibly discovered the joy of running. Right, apart from being, obviously, I'm still competitive internally, have those benchmarks, but I have found running as a sense, a place where I can let loose my stress, frustrations, and a little bit of what I go through in work, because by the time work was also getting bigger. So I think I find that as a very good pillar for me. So today, when people talk to me, I say I have three pillars. One is my family, two is work, and the third is running. So these are the three stools, the legs that I have for the stool that I live, and that's how running has been. So that's in a nutshell what I've done in running.
Nice, nice. It almost like when you started, it was almost like an engineer thinking about running, right? Very linear, very cause and effect. I mean, that's what I heard in what you were describing. Very almost algorithmic approach to running, right? And it's kind of evolved into a more of an art form, right? And there is a experiential element that you're describing towards the latter part of, and that's what happens. And I keep telling people that for most of us who start recreational running, uh, you start with the intention of wanting to get fit, and at some point a switch happens and you start being fit so that you can continue running. Right? It's and I think in your story that you described, it I could hear and sense that as well in your own evolution. So before you started, right, in 2012, were you doing any form of physical activity, or it was like 0 to 5K kind of a thing?
Not really. I mean, I did go to the gym. I would go to the swimming pool to do a few things, uh, but nothing structured, right? I wouldn't go and work out or do fitness for say 1 hour, or it used to be sporadic, but I would be in touch with some form of fitness. But running actually took me by surprise, to be honest. When I
Mm,
started
mm,
running, I was probably 36 or so, or 37, 2012. I would have imagined running to be a very simple activity, especially from what I have been through in the early part of my childhood, school, college, cricket, etc. I thought running was something which should I would do it pretty quickly, right? But the moment I went out there, I think I was in Pune at that time, and I signed up for a 10K. We used to have a last Sunday of the month run in Pune, and I had signed up for a 10K, and uh, it was literally a fight to do that 10K. And even running a kilometer was always was difficult. You run those 200, 300 meters, then you walk for some distance, and then you again restart. So I didn't expect that to be as tough as uh, it turned out to be. So I really respect the process through which
Yeah,
this happened.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like for most of us adults, especially when we get back into recreational running, it's almost like relearning the running, right? As kids, we all are runners. I mean, you don't see kids sitting in a place, right? They're always running. And then at some point, somebody tells you, stop running,
Yeah, yeah.
sit down. And our childhood is over. And then we also stop running. And then when we restart, it's almost like relearning, right? Uh,
No,
and
no, very true. I
uh,
think, I mean, running is something that everyone naturally does. I mean, you remember those days when we used to run to catch a bus, for example,
yeah, yeah,
or go around to, play. I mean, you play whatever kind of hide and seek or whatever you want to play. I think it's been a natural element, but I think the stop that you have for 10, 15
yeah,
years for a
yeah,
lot of people,
yeah,
and then restarting is obviously I mean, a
yeah,
relearning
yeah,
process.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And beginners' mistakes. What? Tell us about the top three mistakes you made when you were kind of ramping up your initial part of your
Uh,
running.
I mean, I can remember probably one very prominently, um, is about not following a structured program, right? Again, I think I was a little overconfident when I got into running, uh, because I felt running was a very simple activity, and so, in fact, in 2004 or so, me and my friend used to live in Mumbai, and that was the time when uh, Procam started the Tata Mumbai Marathon, or those days the Stanchart Mumbai Marathon. So there used to be the concept of, I mean, hardly anyone registered during those days. So I think my friend had taken two applications, one of that for me and one for my friend. And I mean, I slept off. I mean, I didn't go there and do anything. So for me, running was something which I always felt could easily come, right? But when I started the marathon journey, one of the mistakes I did for the first 2 years was not to follow a structured program. And I paid for that dearly in two marathons. The first one was in the Mumbai Marathon in 2013, where I did a 4:02 full marathon debut. But I struggled as everyone else does after 32. Um right, and I thought that I am mature for the next full marathon, uh, which was happening maybe after 7 8 months, in August 2013. That was Hyderabad, where again I did a little bit more of running, but nothing in structured way. And there again I fell into the same trap of. So I think having a structure around your program is something which is very important, and that is something that I would strongly advise anyone to do. There is a structure in terms of periodization, or in terms of back to back running, how your week is structured, uh, uh, those things. uh, but the other two beginners mistakes, I wouldn't say beginners mistakes, it's also experienced runners mistake, I would say, which I have seen in the last 10 years of my, I mean, 9 to 10 years of my running. Is one, uh, you don't do enough of foam rolling and recovery that you should do, because all of us think that running would mean just putting in that mileage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So if you have 1 hour of time, you spend all that 1 hour in a day doing the run. I still follow a similar process, but I would wish that I keep telling myself not to do that and spend enough time stretching, cooling down, warming up, all those essentials. The third, I think, mistake that people do over a period of time is not to really take care of your strength and conditioning. I think somewhere it is very important when it is happening over a period of time. I do understand that everyone would not be equal in all the three aspects that I talked about, but I feel that a little bit of each is important. So these are the three things that I think when I look back, I feel one should lay importance on.
Yeah, no, that those are great great lessons, and I think there is now enough, I would say, consensus amongst runners and coaches that strength training is key to longevity, right? Because especially if you are putting all those miles, injuries, if you want to stay strong, you need to do strength training. So great observations there. And so you went on, you started, you did 10K, and then went on to do marathons, and you started with 402, but you've kind of really taken it to another level by shaving off almost an hour in subsequent ones. So tell us about those. How did that happen?
So that's it's quite interesting because those days, frankly, in India, you didn't have so many uh, sub 3 hour full marathoners on the
Hmm.
amateur side. I believe, I think, and I was in Pune in 2012. One of my friends who I used to run together, who I used to look up to, he did a 328, and that time, in 2012-13, a 330 was as good as a sub 3 right now, right? Because no one had done it. So I always believe in any sphere of life, right? Somebody has to go and break that ceiling, and then the floodgates open, and more people start doing it. So,
Right.
and that's exactly what has happened in India, right? In the last 2 3 years, you have people becoming faster, by doing a lot of faster times. But I know around that 2014-15 time period to 2016, there are a host of runners knocking that 3 hour mark, and people would miss by 3 minutes, 5 minutes, agonizing 1 minute miss, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
But having said that, in the first 2 3 years, I wanted to improve, but I never had any dream of doing a sub 3. In fact, in one of my blogs, I said I would quit running. I mean, in fact, I told my wife that, because she was saying every day you go out and keep running, and we don't get to spend time as a family, etc. And I told her that the moment I do a sub 3, I'll quit running, because I was so confident that I would never get to that benchmark, right? Uh, but after I made that mistake where I went to Hyderabad and did a full marathon and I didn't do well in 2013, I started following a program which I have said publicly. It is the Run Less, Run Fast uh, program, which I continued to use till 2019. And a considerable part of my runs, races, is based on that program, with some tweaks that I did. But I could immediately sense that I moved from 402 to 333 or so in the next Mumbai marathon. So it was a clean shave of around 30 35 minutes that I did. Uh, and when you keep running, you keep improving. Uh, uh, I uh, I think the moment where I felt really good was when I went to Cochin in 2015, um, November or so. They had started the Spice Coast Marathon there. It was also incidentally one of the first Boston qualifiers in India during
Okay.
age during those time. And luckily, there was no prize money, so none of the elites came. So it was a bunch of amateurs who were leading the path.
Okay.
I had gone there after doing around 321 or so in the earlier Mumbai marathon. So from 333, I had gone to 331, 321, and I went to Cochin, flat track, but it's humid in Kerala. But I surprised myself by winning that event then. Uh,
Wow.
uh, and it was a time of 3:14, which is not that great, but it was those time when even the 3:14 was pretty good
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
an amateur point of view, right? So that really built a lot of confidence. And I uh, I mean, I was looking at people and they were all doing world majors, and but getting into a world major was going to be difficult, lottery, etc. So, in fact, in 2016, I applied for the Paris Marathon. I think it was in April. I mean, it was easy to get through the entry itself. Uh, so 2015 November, I did a 3:14, and I wanted to do a good Mumbai marathon in 2016 January, and then I go to Paris. Unfortunately, 2016 January, I mean, I go through a little bit of an asthmatic attack
Mm,
once in a while. So that 2016 Mumbai, I had a DNF. Then the only goal was April, Paris. So I got into the training mode of the run less, run fast, 12-week, 16-week program. And I believe when you do the training, you sense what could come, because you start getting those paces, start getting those comfort. Uh, so I was pretty confident that I would do a sub 3:10 in Paris. Um, but I think the weather, the roads, the clean air, it just got going. And I think while going through, I felt good. And the last 200 meters or so, when I was getting into the last finish line, I saw the clock at around 2:59, 20 or so, right? So you typically run fast, and you cross the line 2:59:48 or so. So that was a huge surprise for me. I mean, it was a big morale booster.
yeah.
So that, I think, that those 2 years, winning the Spice Coast Marathon and then the sub 3 in Paris, was something that I did, and that boosted the confidence, and that helped me follow what I did in the next 5 6 years.
Mhm, mhm. Beautiful. So I want to zoom in a couple of things. One is winning, winning a marathon. I mean, no matter what time and no uh, take away all of that. That's amazing, right? Not everybody gets to win an event. So how was that for you? Just the idea of winning a marathon.
So, I mean, it was great, to be honest. So what happens is, the beauty of a road race is that you have a pack of runners, and it's kind of a struggle which goes on for, say, 42 kilometers, right?
Right, right.
It goes leaner and leaner, and Cochin is something. Kerala is probably where I grew up, so obviously Cochin is something which was home in a way. And they used to have this marathon in a beautiful place where it used to go through the bylanes of Fort Cochin, and a small narrow roads, and by 21 31 kilometers, uh, I mean, I was already in the front pack, uh, and it was a surreal feeling when you have I mean, it was just a police car escorting you, but
Right.
you felt like there was a lead vehicle in front of
Yeah.
you, right up to the finish. And I still loved that moment where there was a escort vehicle in front, leading you to the finish, and there were a host of people cheering for you. So that was an amazing feeling. I don't think I ever won any other full marathon after that. But I would take that and keep that as part of a memory
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such an amazing memory, right? Wow, wow, that's awesome. So, Trivandrum, does Trivandrum have a marathon now, or Kochi is the only one in Kerala?
There are other marathons which happen not in a structured way. I think Cochin is something which has evolved into a annual race for a lot of people in the
Yeah.
country.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
I think there's a bunch of great runners in different parts of Kerala now, but obviously, Souls of Cochin is something which happened quite a bit, quite early, and they have actually heralded a group of runners across cities. I would say in Kerala today.
Yeah. Yeah, Kerala has been the source of great runners in India, right? PT Usha, Shiny Abraham. So, like some of the early back in the 80s and 90s, Kerala gave one of the best, greatest athletes to the country. Um,
Yeah, obviously Kerala has had a history of running, not so much in long distance, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
But incidentally, there have been a few runners like Gopi who has been doing well in the last 5 6 years coming out of Kerala. But I think, yeah, you are right. Track and field has been a big space in Kerala. Who can forget the moments you talked about? PT Usha, Shiny
yeah,
Wilson,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and I also hypothesize that the soccer culture in Kerala is a great bedrock for running culture because soccer is an intense running sport. The second is the fish based diet. I think lends itself to creating good runners. Just my hypothesis, right? I think West Bengal and Kerala probably, right? So, so coming back to the method you were talking about, fast,
The run
run
less, run
less.
fast.
Run. So what is the core principle? Why is it so effective, according to you?
This is basically a program initiated by Bill Pierce and Scott Murr, and they have an institute called the First Institute, the Furman Institute of Running and Training, I think. The concept is simple. That is, for a lot of amateur runners who don't have the time to put in so much of mileage, uh, can I can I put in more quality around and deliver the output, right? Uh, so for me, it worked beautifully well because I've not been a fan of long too much of mileage. I still don't do. Most of my sub threes have been run with mileages of around 60, 65 maximum in a week. Uh, so the concept of run less, run fast has been 3 days of running, where you have one day of intervals, the second day of tempo, the third day of long run, in and put in with a little bit of cross training so that your cardio is intact. Uh, so it worked beautifully well for me. So for a lot of runners, but I think obviously it depends on each runner. But I think the concept wise, it still has the same elements that most of the running programs will have. But I like the fact that it was pretty simple for me as a working professional. You get out there, do your quality runs, come back, and I could get into it every season. Just get into that program. I have experimented a little bit later by adding more of running, just not just sticking to 3 days, maybe adding 1 or 2 days more of easy running. Uh, and also gave me an opportunity to experiment with maybe swimming and cycling a little bit. So that helped in the early parts. So that was the essence, Santosh.
No, nice. And so no, that makes sense. Now, in terms of you've done sub 3, so that means you also qualified for Boston. So did you have you run the Boston yet?
So I ran the Boston in 2017, where I did, if I remember correctly, 2 hours 58 minutes or so. Um, there, so it was a great experience. I'm right from the day I started running as an amateur in 2012 road racing. Uh, Boston uh, is the goal, is the mecca for any amateur runner. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way people have at least told me. That's the way I
Yeah.
believed. And when you finally get through that entry and go there and run, uh, it's an amazing experience. The whole concept of starting at one end, running through different villages or towns, and ending in Boston City is wonderful. And the unpredictable weather keeps you guessing till the last day in Boston, makes it a little bit of luck as to which year you are in there. Because I remember 1 year or 2 years after that, it was terribly cold, and it was difficult for most of the runners out there. But I think uh, the whole course itself, where there is a decline for the first half of the race, and then you have the heartbreak hill, and then you have people crowding on both sides. I think it's an amazing feeling. I've done it once, so I uh, don't go back to the same international marathon again because I just want to do more variety. I really treasure that moment and the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also talked about your whole evolution in running, right? So obviously you're very competitive, and you put in the hard work, and 1 hour getting to sub 3 from 402 when you started, is it requires a lot of hard work, right? It's not just about, I'm sure you have good genes that allowed you to get there, but you also put in a lot of hard work. Um, and you talked about your running evolving into something more experiential than competitive. And I tend to think of it as a spiritual aspect of running and endurance sports, which is the yogi part of Run Yogi, right? So tell us about that, right? How What's happening there?
Firstly, yeah, you rightly put it as run yogi. It could mean a lot of things to multiple people.
Yeah.
For you, it could be more spiritual. I'm not
Hmm.
that spiritual a person,
Hmm.
but uh, I think it's part of life now.
Hmm.
So you get up in the morning. If you don't run, there's something lacking
Hmm.
during that day. Your meetings, you don't feel that energy. The rest of the day don't fall in place in some manner, right? Uh, and You had a tough day at work the previous day, and you sleep. I still sleep for 7 hours, 7.5 hours, so I don't compromise on my sleep. But the next day, you get up, and that half an hour or 1 hour of running uh, keeps a lot of things sane, right? Uh, so that is a part which I like uh, because it truly balances whatever other things that I'm doing
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah.
for me, that's one major chunk. So I still love to have goals while running. You can never take that off me, but it's more balanced. I don't rush into things. I take it easy. I take it step by step. I like to enjoy a little bit more. In fact, uh, the last 2 years of COVID has also taught um, a lot of runners, I mean, us, a lot of runners, a lot of things, right? So
Hmm.
for me, I told you in the beginning that I'm 47, right? So
Hmm.
runners are the only people who get excited when they age because you get into a different age
Hmm.
group. Uh,
Hmm.
so uh, 2020 was the time when I hit 45 in September.
Okay. Okay.
And incidentally, 2020 March was also the time when COVID stuck in India. Um, so, uh, so I had thought 45 to 50 is a good time for me to give one more strong push to whatever I'm doing in running in terms of competitiveness.
Yeah.
Do few good races, finish off in the podiums in a few. Uh, but 2 years, nothing has happened, right? There is hardly any race happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, 2 years of whatever you have, right? I think our initial interaction, you said you want to run forever, right? And
Yeah.
that's your goal. I'm hoping that that will happen. But
Yeah.
having said that, you want to make the best out of
Yeah.
whatever energy that you have in the next
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
But I've realized that 2 years is gone. So you cannot
Mm.
stick to your template
Mm.
many times. So you need to
Yeah.
experience running by
Yeah.
possibly doing variety, inculcating variety, which would
Yeah.
possibly mean trying out a few trails, few runs, few cities, for example, and not
Yeah.
get stuck to the typical template that a runner like me would have.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Running is a form of meditation. And I know you said you're not spiritual, but I think when I talk about the spiritual aspect of running, essentially what it is that I think when you are in some form of a rhythmic motion, repetitive rhythmic motion, at some point you get to a point of being thoughtless. I mean, that is meditativeness. If you
Right,
talk about what are you doing sitting and meditating, you're just watching your thoughts flow by. You're getting to a point of uh, uh, you know n- total silence. And in running, that's what happens. And so it's a kind of a meditation, and that's why you get to be productive, you get to be more present, all of that stuff, right?
correct, agreed.
So, are you big on supplements?
Well, interesting question. Disclaimer is that I am part of the Fastnap journey as a co-founder and currently the CEO of the brand. Uh, but my interest in supplements and nutrition probably precedes that. The reason is this. As growing up, I think my food habits was pretty much on idli, dosa, and
Hmm.
curd rice,
By
I
the way,
would
by the
say.
way, I didn't know that you're a Tambram. I didn't know that.
Or curd rice, for example, right? And
Yeah,
pickle.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the staple that you would have it every day. I used to play junior cricket in Kerala, for Kerala. When you, I mean, those days, Kerala was were the minnows. You get battered every match by Karnataka, Hyderabad, Tamil Nadu, etc. Right? So when you grow up, especially in the age group of 16, 17, you see people around developing faster, right? Because you eat better, you eat more, maybe proteins, and so uh, I knew that somewhere nutrition, possibly because of the way my upbringing was not that great, correct? But then I professionally got into the healthcare sector. So in a way, I know what um, uh, uh, goes into your body a little bit, even though I was an engineer and not a technical guy, but I was close to that industry, correct? Uh, so when I started running, I knew I could get the running skills part resolved if you keep doing it. Uh, in terms of gadgets, the shoes, the Garmins of the world, you can get it sorted, right? Uh, the food part was what typically gets left behind in that journey, right? At least for me, because I wouldn't eat much of protein. I mean, I'm not a great fan of even too much of vegetables. Typically, the Indian meal would be more of rice and then a little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah,
the subjis and stuff like that, right? I was always open to experimentation, right? I would pick up an omega 3 when I used to travel quite a bit globally. I would typically pick up a gummies for my children if I used to travel to the US or UK. Uh, so I was willing to experiment, and I believe that one should experiment. One should never have a closed eye when it comes to supplementation, right? So that principle still stays with me. So even while running, I used to pick up gels from when I used to go to UK or US. Try to experiment with my own gel energy gel journey. In fact,
Mm,
today
mm,
as we speak, I typically use close to 9 to 10 gels in a full marathon. Um,
mm,
so I've experimented quite a bit, right? But I fundamentally feel that there are going to be deficiencies
mm.
in your life, in your lifestyle, in your body. Now you have to fulfill those deficiencies. Now the question is, how do you do it? And I
Yeah.
believe supplementation is a good way to do it.
Mhm.
So that's my principle in the entire debate.
Yeah.
And I think time and again across the world it has been proven, so we don't need to get
Yeah.
into that. The sources could be different, but I think one should have an open eye. And the fasten up journey started in 2015, and uh, for me it was great because I always say that business, which I was trained for, which I spent my life, initial part of my corporate life, healthcare, where my karma was, domain was, and third, fitness and sports, where my passion was, uh, truly amalgamated into that fasten up journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's been the journey. And I mean, loved the process of creating new products because India
Mm,
has evolved,
yeah.
and love the fact that I had an opportunity to interact with so many running groups.
Mm.
Uh, so it's been a great journey, Santosh.
Terrific. So it's like almost that ikigai diagram. I don't know if you've seen it, right? Intersection of passion. I think there are three circles, but essentially the summary of it is if you can marry passion, economics, and I think one more, then you have that circle, which is what for you that's a perfect circle that you're living by. So the supplement industry in India is that, I mean, is that like a protected industry? Like, you have a lot of brands abroad, right? I mean, it's a global brands. So how do you compete? How do you keep yourself competitive with so many brands, or how does it work?
So the answer to your question is that India is evolving. So I
Mm,
think there's a lot of education which is happening. People are getting knowledgeable about nutrition in general. I think
mhm.
COVID has expedited that journey.
Right.
Even in the elite category of sports persons, the knowledge of nutrition is probably the last that they get down
Mm,
to, and that's the
mhm.
unfortunate part. Globally, I think different countries have evolved, experimented with a lot of things, right? But in
Mm,
India, I would say the journey is still on its way.
mhm.
And there you can divide it into the elite sports
Mhm.
people, and the people who generally want to be active and who want to be
Mm.
open to
Yeah.
supplementation. So that process is on.
Yeah.
I think India will follow the world in terms of product innovation, product availability, etc. Plus the
Mhm.
fact that India already had a traditional base through
Yeah. Yeah.
Ayurveda, herbal interventions, etc. So I think it'll be a great time for India in terms of availability of products. Uh, yes, the brands are coming in. The more brands are getting into the sector uh, as we speak. So 5 years back, very limited. Now the more. Also, the narrative has changed in general from typical whey protein 15, 20 years back to wholesome nutrition. You talk about micronutrition, nutrients, nutrients, proteins. Then you have concepts of plant protein evolving, right? Plant-based food evolving, right? So there are a lot of interesting things happening, and I think in India, given that you have a lot of new age D2C brands evolving, people are experimenting quite a bit, which is a good thing. Now, having said that, the first part of your question was the control aspect, correct? Uh, Now, in any growing industry, there is bound to be issues of regulation and stuff like that. So I think it is going to be evolving. There is going to be a lot of self-regulation, a lot of consumers also becoming more knowledgeable as we progress. Obviously, there is a body which regulates food supplements in the country under the FSSAI guidelines. But having said that, I think as we evolve, more products come into being. I think there will be a lot more customers making sure that good brands stay the course. I think more certifications come into play. I think, and that's going to be in a process. And for us, we are committed because I think a lot of people
Mm.
that are involved in our brand typically come from the healthcare sector who know the regulations of a US FDA or a
Mhm.
UK MHRA or a TGA. And also, we have believed that I think 99.9% of our products get done inside our own factories,
Mhm.
which means
Mhm.
that we are able to control the entire supply chain, etc.
Mhm.
But having said that, yes, I think the question is relevant. But I think the good part is the Indian consumer is getting to get
Yeah.
as much as you would be getting in US today.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's going
Yeah.
to be interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the supplement, the variety, it's like if there's a store here that I go to, which I'm like a kid in the candy store when I go to that store, because there's this huge variety of supplementation from all kinds of herbs. And I think there are two levels of supplementation, right? One is the health part of it, the other is performance part of it, right? And if you look at things like holy basil or ashwagandha, or ashwagandha is a very Indian, it's mainstream now in the US. I mean, you almost every brand has an ashwagandha
Yeah, you have
capsule
things
available.
like turmeric, for example.
Turmeric, yeah. So there's a huge opportunity, and so yeah, definitely. I think more and more people get into health and well-being. This is a huge opportunity. Yeah, terrific. Well, good luck with your journey on the supplementation side, and it's very exciting. And so, what next for you on the running journey? Where are you headed? Any big events coming up?
So, in a nutshell, this is what it looks like. So, I said I would give myself another 3 years of uh, competitive running as to where I am, and probably the opportunity to improve from where I am. So that's where I am. I've done eight sub 3 hour marathons, so I would like to do two more and get it to 10.
Okay.
As regarding world majors, because of the COVID, obviously there is a stop. I don't know
Mhm.
when that would resume for me.
Yeah.
But I have done four, but three of them have been sub 3 hours. New York, I would like to go back and do a sub 3 hour whenever it permits.
Mhm.
I have to do London and Tokyo. I don't know when that would happen. Uh, Full marathons still hold most of my focus, at least for the next two
Mm.
three years. But I would possibly like to experiment a little bit more about with more variety of races. I would say I'm
Mhm.
not a ultra man as of now.
Mhm.
I don't know whether I have it in me in terms of time, in terms of commitment, in terms of
Mm.
interest to do
Mhm.
longer distances.
Right.
But at least I would like to do a little bit more variety when it comes to distances unto 42, 50, and less, and see
Yeah.
how I can become better and better.
Right.
Uh, so I think running itself has a lot of things in store for a person to improve.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, My elder daughter, who is 15, also competes at the state and national level
Wow.
in middle distances running. So I have this joke going around with her that in a couple of years I may not be as fit or as fast as her, so I
Mhm.
might have to get into a cycle or a scooter to pace her. So I would want that few years to be interesting training around with her. So
Yeah.
that's how it looks like for the next 3-4 years, and I don't know what happens after that.
Yeah. So that also proves that there is genetics involved here, right? Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Terrific. So, hey, we covered a whole bunch of ground in your journey, and thanks for sharing your journey as a runner as well as an entrepreneur. And we're coming to a last part of our conversation, which is a fun Q&A round that I have with my guests. So, you ready for that?
Okay, this is a surprise, but I would take it.
I won't ask you any controversial questions. So that's a promise.
Sure.
Okay. So we talked about food, we talked about supplementation, but I think one question I have for my guests is, what's your favorite junk food? Something that you like to indulge in?
So I'm a big uh, junk eater. I mean, I love my aloo bhujiyas. I love mixtures. I love anything which is savories.
Yeah,
I love that. So
that's good. Aloo bhujiyas and savories. Yeah, cool, 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 cool. What's your favorite running gadget?
Garmin, which I have been using, the watch, which has been there.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm tempted to say a little bit shoes, but I mean, it's gone through a lot of journey, right? I mean,
Yeah,
last two
yeah,
years has been different for the entire world with the carbon plated shoes, etc.
yeah,
So I would
yeah.
stick to my watch.
Okay, okay. And Garmin did not sponsor this show. Uh, uh, you travel, you've lived in a lot of places, and which has been your favorite city to run other than Bangalore? So no Bangalore, outside Bangalore.
So in fact, I love uh, running races in Europe. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, it's just the fact that I like to race in cities.
Hmm.
And I mean, the few times I've done it in Europe, the history in
Hmm.
around in each city, and the other factors, you have fantastic local transport. So
Hmm.
typically, my wife comes along with me. Pavitra comes along with me for the races, and in Europe, it's so easy to catch a runner 5-6
Hmm.
times. Unlike anywhere else in India or in the US, right?
Oh yeah.
I think I love racing in cities, especially
Hmm.
European cities. I love the weather. I love the roads. I love the monuments around. Yeah, so I've done Paris and Berlin, and I've truly enjoyed both.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. Your personal favorite supplement?
There's one called the Reload, which is an electrolyte,
Hmm.
which I truly love. I like.
Hmm.
So I keep telling that if I have to take just one product out of the basket
Hmm.
and walk away with it, it would be the Reload. And I also think that it's the most non-controversial product anyone could have. Who would dispute that having an electrolyte is bad, right?
Yeah.
You need water, you need electrolytes into your system. I mean, no
Yeah.
one would
Yeah.
dispute that fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. A book that inspires you.
Uh, I mean, I've read a few books, but I mean, I've not really. Uh, I mean, I think one of the books that what stays with me, at least in the recent past, I mean, last 10 years or so, has been I think the Outliers,
Hmm.
which Malcolm uh, uh, Gladwell has written.
Yeah.
Because the reason is that not it inspires me,
Hmm.
but it kind of puts a lot of thoughts into uh, the whole sporting journey,
Hmm.
about who becomes an outlier, who is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And when I see my own journey of whatever little I've been associated with in
Yeah.
sports, and when I see my kids doing it, or when I now that I'm in this field of sports and fitness
Mhm.
through Fastened Up, I get to interact with a lot of uh, elite sports
Mhm.
people right from early age.
Mhm. Mhm.
So a lot of aspects given there do reflect. So I think,
Mhm.
but I'm not a voracious reader, so some books do stay, but I don't remember a lot of books that I read. So that's an unfortunate part.
Mhm. So where do you get most of your inspiration from? If not books, is it where do you get your stories from?
So for me, it is those moments, sporting
Mm.
moments,
Mhm.
sporting glories,
Right.
when people achieve,
Mhm.
and the journey behind. Um
Right.
so those really inspire me.
Mhm.
And it's not just about those idols, because for me, every time I sit with somebody to
Mhm.
interact, uh, I find a lot of highlights in any person that you talk to,
Mhm.
and you feel that each of them have achieved something which you can take out.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it just gets magnified when you talk to somebody who has represented the country, or who
Yeah.
has achieved a sporting glory, because
Yeah. Yeah.
in some ways you w- tend to relate to what
Mhm.
they have done in a smaller way.
Yep.
And I get to see a lot of behind the scenes in the last 5 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that quite a bit inspires me.
Mhm. Makes sense. So the last question I have for you, which is a question that I ask all my guests, is if you made a movie out of your life story so far, what genre would you place it in, and who would you hire to play your character as an actor?
Well, I mean, this is a very wrong question to me, because I'm not. I mean, I don't know too much into casting
Okay.
who I would be, but I would leave that apart. But if I have to talk about the genre, maybe sports naturally
Mhm.
sits. But I would put a little bit of make it a little bit of more serious stuff. Put in
Mm.
a little bit of business into it,
Mm.
and finally the glory part.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where I would put the peg points at.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who would do that role? I'm not.
Maybe you. You just can
Maybe
hire
me.
yourself for
Maybe me.
that.
Yeah,
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 just hire yourself.
yeah,
We don't
yeah,
have to. We don't have
yeah,
to find an
yeah,
actor.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, terrific. You did well, Vijay, on the Q&A. Learned a few more things about you in the process. So we're kind of coming to a wrap up here, and I want to let you uh, give the last word. Any parting comments or message to our audience?
No, I think I should thank you, Santosh. I got to know more about you and your history of what you have done, and I mean, the task of interviewing is not so easy. I know it for myself, and to keep it interesting over a period of time with multiple people is not a small job. So kudos to you. Uh, but having said that, for me, I've been glad to be part of the journey of how running has evolved, at least in India, to a small part. I've been fortunate to be seeing that journey. I see a lot of people get into that journey. Uh, I think people should stay the course. It's not a temporary part of your life. Try and see if you can make it a part of your journey forever, like you have mentioned. Maybe it is not running, but it's more things. But have an active part, be an integral part. Uh, and also, I think one more change that I'm seeing because of this revolution which is happening, at least in India, is the fact that people are trying to understand sports more, right? And encourage their kids, encourage people around to play the game, right? Because a lot of people who have never ever been part of sports have suddenly gotten involved in active running, achieving things, etc. Right? And suddenly they want to get their kids involved, contribute to the sporting evolution of the country and whatnot. So I think it augurs well for the country, and I think that's probably something that I would want everyone to be glued into, encourage people around. And who knows, I think we have targets for 2024, 2028, and 2032. So more gold medals for the country at the Olympics and whatnot. And I would be happy to see those successes as we age. Thank you.
Totally. Well said, Vijay. Again, thanks for taking your time out. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
much.
Santosh.